Today, we will learn and discover about the life of George Washington Carver. It is a story of struggle and triumph, but also a story of fear and resilience. Welcome to the Brother Henry and You Show. I am your host, Henry Harris. He went from slavery to segregation, racism, and being excluded to becoming an American scientist, plant doctor, and so many other accomplishments. Today we are at the George Washington Carver Museum. I am so excited to be here. We're going to be getting a tour today of not only where we're at, but we will also be talking about and taking a tour and discovery of the life of George Washington Carver. And I'm here today with Curtis Gregory, and it's nice to meet you. So he was born here.
He was born right here. It was originally a 240-acre farm.
Oh, wow.
He was born between 1860 to 1864. And we think probably the latter, about 1864, is when he was born, at the end of the Civil War. And the reason that George was here is because his mother was enslaved on this property. She was brought here to help the Carvers on the farm. Shortly after she was brought here, she had two sons. George had an older brother by the name of James, called him Jim, and then George was born. Okay. And right down in that location down there is where we think George was born.
Can we go look?
So we can go down and take a walk down here, yeah. It's about somewhere people thought the cabin was here, down in that location, or somewhere in this location was a cabin. So archaeologists came here and they did an archaeological dig in this area. In this area in particular, they found objects, a lot of different objects. They found some little clay marbles that could have been George's and Jim's, and horseshoes and other little items. It's a small space. Where that stone is located in a general area, there would have been another cabin where Moses and Susan would have lived in. Bandits or someone came on this property to take George and his mother. The story goes that Moses Carver, the owner, he wanted to get them back, right? He wanted to get them back, and he hired a man in the Diamond area to get them. The story goes this John Bentley guy went down on the border of Missouri and Arkansas, which is about 40 miles south of here, and that's where George was found. But Mary was never ever found again. Dedicated to the little boy, and this is where George would come out, and this is where he would wonder about flowers and trees and birds and all sorts of things to deal with the natural world. When he was in the woods, he had a little secret garden that he would collect things and put in his little garden. He had a rock collection, and he was just very, very curious about nature. And this is where it all started. And you know what else George liked to do in the woods here? He liked to paint. Something else that George liked to do was learn as much as he could in the woods. He wanted to go to school here. George and Jim were not allowed to go to the local school because they were black. We think Moses Carver maybe had tried to admit them one time, but we think it was the townspeople that wouldn't do that.
Here in Diamond.
In Diamond, there was a school in Neosho for the black kids. So around the age of 12, some people say he was younger, I think he was about 12, he decided on his own that he would leave here and he would go to Neosho, and he was on his own. Okay. Now I think that's pretty brave of a little kid to do, a black couple that lived next door to the school. So they took him in for about a year or so. They went to Kansas City, then he went to a place called Highland, Kansas. Small town, but it had a college. So he applied on paper, got accepted, but when George showed up at the school, they wouldn't accept him because he was black.
Oh my goodness. Very
disappointed, but he didn't give up. He stayed in the little town for a little while, and then he went to western Kansas. Stayed out in western Kansas for a short while, then for some odd reason, he went to Iowa. Winterset, Iowa. Went to Winterset, found a job, was attending a church, met a family that encouraged him to try to go back to, go to a college nearby.
Yeah.
There was a school called Simpson College that was nearby in Indianola, Iowa. He applied, got accepted, and when he showed up, they welcomed him to Simpson College. While he was at Simpson College, he took a bunch of art courses because his real goal was to be an artist. Well, there was a teacher there that liked George. She said, George, you're a good artist, but I'm not really sure if you can make a good living in art. Maybe you should think about another career. Well, this teacher was noticing that he often brings plants to class. So his teacher said, well, maybe you should think about a career in botany. George thought that was a good idea to study plants, so he transferred schools. He transferred from Simpson College to what is now Iowa State University. They wanted him to stay there to teach, but George was thinking, no, I'd rather go somewhere where I could, where he would often use the phrase where I could help my people.
Yeah.
He's at Iowa, down in Tuskegee, Alabama. There was a new school that was opening, Tuskegee Institute, started by Booker T. Washington. Well, what happened? George got there and he stayed there for 47 years. And that's where we know the most about him. That's where we know about his work with peanuts, sweet potatoes, soybeans, teaching rural farmers about crop rotation, diversifying their crops, being a teacher in the classroom. And then in 1943, at the age of about 79 or 80, he died and is buried on the campus of Tuskegee University.
That's where he's buried now?
That's where he's buried at. But in all those 47 years at Tuskegee, this is where it all started at. Well, I think the biggest myth that we get here often, asked here all the time, is, oh, George Washington Carver, the inventor of peanut butter. Being born enslaved here, his mother disappearing, being raised by the Moses and Susan Carver at the age of 12, deciding on his own that he would leave here in a time period that wasn't particularly good for blacks, and leaving here, going to Neosho, wanting to go to school, and staying in that little town for a little while, then on his own deciding that he would leave, go to Fort Scott, Kansas, witnessing the things that he witnessed, and then journeying on and being rejected from that one school, Highland College. Some would have said, if I get rejected from this school, I'll get rejected from all schools, but he didn't stop. Wow. He kept going, making his way to Iowa, being the first to graduate from Iowa State University. The first black to graduate with 2 degrees, a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, then going down south and helping people in the South. And I believe that's George's biggest accomplishment, was to, when he went to Tuskegee and going in his laboratory and working in his laboratory and teaching and helping farmers, making their lives a lot better. I mean, there were so many accomplishments. Personal accomplishments were helping others in the Tuskegee area and being a classroom at Tuskegee, and so those students could go out and help others.
That's awesome.
Figure it out for yourself, my lad. You've all that the greatest of men have had. 2 arms, 2 hands, 2 legs, 2 eyes, and a brain to use if you would be wise. With this equipment they all began. So start to the top and say, I can. You're well equipped for what fight you choose. You've legs and arms and a brain to use. And the man who has risen great deeds to do began his life with no more than you. You are the handicap you must face. You are the one who must choose your place. You must say where you want to go, how much you have studied the truth to know. God has equipped you for life, but he lets you to decide what you want to be. Courage must come from the soul within. The man must furnish the will to win. So figure it out for yourself, my lad. You are born with all that the great have had. With your equipment, they all began. Get hold of yourself and say, I can.
I can.
I can, and that
And that was him.
George.
Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Curtis,
thank
for
you,
taking
yeah.
this opportunity to give us a tour. Stand on the property, it's just breathtaking.
That's right.
To go from this to the first black president, people like George Washington Carver, these people paved the way so we can be where we're at today. So if you enjoyed this, please share it with your friends. Just remember this whole month we're going to be doing different shows dedicated to Black History Month. Thank you for watching. Have an amazing day.
We hope you have enjoyed today's program. We want to connect with you. Visit us at facebook.com/The Brother Henry and You Show, or visit us on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Henry Harris 100. We're so grateful you tuned in today and hope you have a fantastic day.